Hello and welcome. I'm Alicia, and welcome to this Trauma Informed Ayurveda video series. In this series, you'll learn methods of healing trauma and restoring wholeness through the lens of Ayurveda so that you can feel free of the past and feel safe in your body and in your own mind and thoughts. This series is for you if you consider yourself an HSP, highly sensitive person, if you consider yourself an empath or having just a highly sensitive nervous system in general, if you have identified that you have traumas or emotional baggage that you know you want some support working through, but you're still looking for the right method for yourself. And this is for you if you've been in traditional therapy or talk therapy for years, and you're still seeking deeper integrative support for your healing and to support your nervous system to not get hijacked or to not feel triggerable or overwhelmed by the environment around you. So a lot of these talks are supportive for all of those things mentioned and more. These talks are also for you if you find yourself dealing with a chronic pain or chronic illness that has lasted, basically any physical body health challenge, digestive, autoimmune, just different types of things that have lasted for 3 months or longer. Really, any physical health pain or challenge that has lasted for months or years of your life, and you've watched it progress, but you feel like you've never been able to get to the bottom of it. In this series and in this YouTube channel, we will also be diving in more to how the physical and emotional healing realms integrate, because Ayurveda gives us an incredibly wise, time-tested, powerful lens through which to view these aspects of the body and how they integrate. And so it is my great pleasure to share this with you, and I want to honor all of the master healers and teachers who have passed this information on to me, because without them, I don't know where I would be. I would still be stuck in my traumas and not being able to support others like I have been. So I'm very, very completely indebted to them and honor them, and am happy and grateful to have experienced so much resolution for myself and my clients so that I can share this information with you. So all glories to Ayurveda and all glories to the wise teachers that have come before in the lineage. So in today's video, I want to share about how what you eat impacts trauma healing and emotional regulation. So we will, in future videos, also go into how you eat and when you eat, because those also create a regulation of emotion and affect your ability to digest and your ability to assimilate, and also is a very important part of the food body foundation of healing trauma. Today, let's just talk briefly, but in more detail, about what. So food is not only physical, food is also energetic. And so there are two types of physical food, or I'm going to give you two categories of how I see it: physical food. And then there are three categories of the way that foods energetically impact you and disturb or balance the mind and the emotions. So first, let's talk about this physical food. So what are these two categories? So for you and for every unique individual, there are foods that are going to either clog and constrict you, and there are foods that are going to soften and open you, like in a good way. A soften and open meaning they're going to nourish you and they're going to dilate the channels of your body. And when the channels of your body are dilated, that means prana and energy flows to the places it needs to flow. And that means the physical nutrients and building blocks of your tissues can flow and get to where they need to go. So the contrast to that is constrict and close. So it's like that's the kink in the garden hose, right? The garden hose, which are the channels of our body, physical and energetic, we want those to dilate and open, and we want them to be soft and supple so that everything gets to where it needs to go in the body. And that's what gives you energy and creativity and insight and wisdom, and feeling emotionally clear in your heart, clear in your thoughts, not bombarded. When the opposite is true and the opposite happens, there's a constriction of that channel and it gets closed off and the body becomes clogged. Now, the energetic channels can become clogged and the physical channels can become clogged. A most obvious example of the physical channels becoming clogged is that your guts aren't working. So you eat and then you get bloating and you feel lethargic and you feel cranky and irritable, or you get acid reflux or something, or you can't go to the bathroom, or you go to the bathroom too much, right? There's like an irritation in the system. And so there are foods that are clogging and congesting and constricting, and there are foods that are supportive for you to stay open and clear and provide healthy movement. Now, from an Ayurvedic lens, this goes way beyond macro and micronutrients that we understand in, a lot of nutrition that we learn about. So it's more than just protein, carbohydrates, and fat. It's more than just the content of fiber in your system or in your meals that you're putting into your system. It goes, we're talking about more of the subtle energetics, the gunas as described in Ayurveda, or the qualities of the foods. So there are different qualities that affect this dilation or constriction of the body. And some of the qualities that open and nourish and impact the nervous system in the way that you want it to be positively impacted are qualities such as warmth and oil and nourishing qualities. And then there are qualities that are not nourishing. And these are qualities that are dry and rough and cold. So you see the opposites here, that we're talking about warmth versus coldness. We're talking about dry versus moist or hydrated or oily and, nutrient rich. All right, so we're seeing the two sides of these constriction or good, healthy, flowing cycles. And it comes down to more of the subtle qualities of your food. Now, what does this mean? Because now I'm giving you a lens that is not just telling you what to eat. It's not just giving you a list of some micronutrient and some food that is supposed to be a superpower. Well, it's not going to be a superpower if it's not ingested in a way or prepared in a way, invited into your body in a way that its healthy qualities come out. And it's not going to be invited in the body in a way if the channels are constricted. So, what to do? So, the basic, how this translates to food is to think about your food not as the label of what it is, but to think about your food in what it is, the way that it's prepared. Does that distinction make sense to you? So not what it is, but how you're preparing it. And this is still on the physical level, but it's a little bit more on the subtle. physical level, right? So if we want to invite in more warm qualities, how do we do that? And more moist qualities, how do we do that? Versus the dry, rough, clogging, closing things. Well, dry, rough, clogging, closing things are fast food, old food. Old food meaning leftovers or packaged foods, canned foods, quick to go foods, grab and go foods. They're old food. Their energetics are constricting in your body. They're not nourishing inherently. And they're also just dry, rough, cold. You're eating them fast, right? This doesn't create an environment in the nervous system that can relax and heal, especially if there's trauma under the surface that you're trying to resolve. So instead, we want to favor foods that are fresh, that are warm, that are cooked, ideally cooked freshly, cooked in your own home, cooked by your own hands with your own loving intention, that have warm, so there's a warm quality in the temperature, but then there can be a warm quality in the spice as well. So let's use just a simple example of like a breakfast. You could have a packaged cereal that you pour, hemp milk or oat milk or almond milk on top of, and you eat that crunchy, cold, old, pretty dry cereal. I know you're mixing it with a liquid, but it's crunchy and it's dry, right? So it's actually cold and going to constrict the channels, and it's old and it's machine made, right? So this is one category. Or for breakfast, you could eat a warm porridge, like cooked apples and oatmeal with raisins and cinnamon and, a little coconut oil or ghee and maple syrup. Can you feel this difference that I'm describing? Which one feels more warm, nourishing, and inviting? I have very sweet memories of my grandmother, for example. So when I go to grandma's home, there's always a soup on the stove, and the smell fills the house. And immediately when you walk in the door and you breathe in, it's like, oh, I just feel at home. I am inspired by the scent. My mouth starts salivating just smelling it, and there's like some yummy soup on the stove. As opposed to the cold old foods. There's a different feel, right? Than that. The love, it's cooked with love. It's cooked, as a stewy, warm, yummy soup. So these are the two categories when it comes to you now starting to think about your meals. How can you approach more home cooked, even if you have to have leftovers and do some batch cooking? It's better than grabbing a sandwich to go, out of a store. For example, you make a big pot of soup and it lasts you a few days, and you heat it up and you put it in a thermos and you take it with you, and you're like, I have my warm thing even if I need to be on the go. So that's the first thing when it comes to energetics around foods. The subtle qualities of the two categories of foods, rather. Now let's get into the energetics of foods. So now there's also, and take it another step further, is that how does that particular food substance affect the mind? And this is a whole really amazing category or aspect of the lens of Ayurveda that looks at these three categories. There are foods that clear the mind, that make the mind feel relaxed, that make the mind feel nourished, and that allow the mind to see clearly. Clearly, matter-of-factly, non-reactively. They're foods that promote the non-triggerable aspect of mind. And so this category of food, and these three labels I'm going to give you are a vast, wide topic that go into way more detail. But right now, I'm just going to use these labels as a lens for looking at the energetics of food and how they impact your mind. So this first category that makes your mind really clear and alert and sharp and relaxed, this is called sattva. Sattva. It means true. It means very close to the truth. It means that your mind is relaxed and clear as a result of eating these kinds of foods. The second category is the energetic of food that creates stimulation and agitation in the mind. So these are foods that actually have a primary energetic that disturbs the mind. It causes insomnia. So the biggest cause of insomnia and lost sleep or agitated mind or being what's the word? Yeah, just overstimulated, overreactive, over emotional has to do with this category. Foods that are Rajasic. So the Sanskrit term is Rajas or Rajasic. These are foods that agitate the mind, disturb the mind, and stimulate mental activity, but not the kind that you can control, not the kind that you can direct. It's kind of when my mind feels scrambled, it's Rajasic. And if you eat a sattvic diet for a long time, that's a diet that creates a lot of clarity in the mind, and then you eat a Rajasic food, you'll notice it immediately. But if your mind is, agitated currently, then we need to remove the foods that do that and help you restore a baseline. Again, this is what's going to have the body and mind feel more calm, peaceful, and have a healthy foundation for healing trauma as well. So we have two categories so far. The first is Satvik foods that have your mind feel clear. The second is Rajasic foods, which agitate and disturb the mind. And now the third category is Tamasic foods. This is the category called tamas. And this means foods that dull the mind and create a foggy mind. So brain fog and cloudy thoughts and forgetfulness and a clouded memory. This is due to tamas. And there are foods that we eat that create tamas. Now, also, the foods in the types of physical foods, clogging foods, also create rajas and tamas in the mind, where warm, nourishing foods that dilate the channels that I was mentioning earlier, these are foods that promote sattva in the mind. So what we want to do when we're trying to approach the resolution of trauma, the unburdening of emotional baggage, the regulation of the nervous system, is we want to gear our diet as best as possible, and as long as it doesn't trigger, other past tendencies, addictions, or behaviors, meaning, we make these shifts in diet as long as the rules in diet don't make you, trigger trauma for you. But instead of thinking of it in that way, like we're not following rules, we're just trying to make choices each day, each moment, each meal that are the most nourishing and sattvic choices for your individual. So in order to apply this information, you want to look at what are some of the foods that I know are Rajasic or Tamasic, and I'm going to give you a list of those, and how can I reduce some of those or swap them or make some adjustments with the Sattvic foods and just start to work a little bit more and more and more towards Sattvic eating. And this is going to support your overall feeling of safety in your body and in your nervous system. Okay, so let's recap. and then we'll wrap up for today. So there are two categories of physical food that we explored: those that constrict and clog the channels, those that dilate and open the channels, allowing for good energy to flow and the nourishment of the body. Therefore, the regulation of blood sugar and the regulation of neurotransmitters and feel-good hormones in the body. And then there are three energetics that are inherent in each food that we eat. Each food that we eat will either make our mind feel dull, heavy, and foggy, or each food we eat will make our mind agitated and irritated and super busy and stimulated, or each food that we eat can help our mind feel clear and calm, alert, and present. And ultimately, for healing trauma, that's what we want. We want foods that are going to support our mind to feel clear. The more we can do that, the easier it is to lay this foundation of safety within and resolve what needs to be resolved. So what to do? I gave you the one example of a breakfast swap where you can take, cold, dry cereal and switch it to a warm porridge. That's the general take-home message in terms of you taking action on these ideas. And, looking up more vegetable-rich, plant-based soup recipes, batching some soups and stews at home, and eating home-cooked, nourishing meals. Even if you're going to be on the go, you can still provide yourself food and nourishing food at that, and more sattvic food. Now, specifically, tamasic foods are meat, wheat, like glutinous foods, meat, any animal products, dairy, cheese, all with the exception of ghee. Ghee in Ayurveda, which is clarified butter, ghee is the only real animal product in Ayurveda that's considered sattvic. And because it has so many other benefits in the body that we won't go into right now, but it's kind of like one of those Ayurvedic superfoods, but it is sattvic in the right amount, in the right portion. So generally said, leaning more towards a vegan diet is a more sattvic diet, because the tamas is held, the dullness and the fear and the pain and the energetics of the animals that are producing food products, as well as wheat being a sticky, clogging substance, they all do dull the mind. And sattvic foods, on the other hand, include fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, fresh spices that aren't too hot and spicy, rather, cinnamons and cardamoms and Italian herbs and all these nice flavorful spices. These are more, a little bit more on the sattvic side, but fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds, pure oils, especially cold pressed oils, and grains and legumes, cooked warm foods, fresh juices. These are all sattvic foods, simple foods, not super complex, but just simple, pure, as close to the earth as possible. These are sattvic food choices. Now, in the Rajasic category, all of the foods that I just mentioned that are tamasic are also Rajasic, meaning wheat, meat, and dairy, do affect the energetics of the mind and make the mind more busy and more agitated and stimulated. Specifically, other foods that are also Rajasic, tamasic are garlic and onions and mushrooms. So those three foods tend to create agitation in the mind, which is why longtime meditators or monks that live in ashrams, they have no garlic and onions in their diet, and they're able to sit with a very still mind and meditate for hours and hours. And so these foods that I kind of just put them into broad categories. There's absolutely no judgment on what your personal choices are for food, and I am not trying to transfer any dogmas onto you. But what I do want you to understand is that for the sake of trauma healing and for the sake of realigning the body and mind, especially if there's chronic illness, especially if there's trapped emotions, emotional baggage, or trauma or past pain that is hijacking your nervous system, the more we can gear our food choices towards a more sattvic diet and away from the Rajasic and Tamasic foods, the more supported you'll be in your healing process. So please forgive any of my limitations in translating any of this information to you. I do hope that this was helpful insight. And I would also love to hear from you. Of the things that we shared today around Sattvic, Rajasic, Tamasic foods, what are some of your favorite Sattvic foods that fall under that category of fruits, veggies, nuts, seeds, grains, legumes, basically a wholesome, healthy vegan diet of fresh cooked foods? What are some of your meals go to that are like soups and porridges? Or what are some of the things that you love? And what's one clogging or Rajasic, Tamasic food that you feel like you could take a break from for at least a week? Put it in the comments below. Leave a comment below and let me know what are some of your favorite Sattvic foods and what's one Rajasic or Tamasic food that you can take a break from for a week or so. Leave a comment below. I would love to hear from you. And did you enjoy this video? Did you like this video? Was it supportive for you? If so, please give it a thumbs up, and it would be so amazing if you would share it with your friends. Please subscribe to this channel so I can share more trauma healing through the Ayurvedic lens, tips and insights and education with you. And if you want even more resources to heal trauma and restore your whole being through Ayurveda, plus some personal insights that I only share via email, then head over to alicialyndiaz.com. Make sure you sign up for email updates and we can stay in touch there, and you'll get regular trainings, education, and updates there. And please remember, above all, you're not alone. Keep going, keep healing, keep growing, keep taking good care of your body and your inner self and your inner child. And remember that the wisdom of all of nature lives within you and has the power to heal all of us back into wholeness. So stay on the path. You've got this, and you're not alone. We're in this together. Thank you so much for watching this video. All my love to you, and I'll see you on the next episode of Trauma Informed Ayurveda. I'll share a little prayer. Feel free to sing it with me. Loka samasta Sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat.